society has become a very moving, flexible system. In this society, the persons, the individuals have to organize themselves. Who am I? How are I? With whom am I? For what am I?
Yeah.
So these questions, these deep questions of identity, who am I? This has to be done by individual persons each day, again and again.
Yeah.
Identity is a process that enables us to participate in society, but it has to be done individually and each day, again and again. And counseling is a space where this is done, where this can be supported, where this can be framed. Hilarion Petzold spoke about a space of freedom.
This is Three People in Your Head, a podcast about getting the best out of yourself and others. Co-hosted by John Fleming and myself, Matt Taylor. Sponsored by the International Transactional Analysis Association and the European Association for Transactional Analysis. Peter, thank you so much for joining us on Three People in Your Head. Maybe you could go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and your roles within TA, that kind of thing.
Thank you for the invitation at first. My name is Peter Rudolph. I'm a TSTA in the field of counseling, and I come from the northwest of Germany. And I'm working there in an institute with some friends, and we offer counseling, psychotherapy, training, supervision. And I mostly work in the psychosocial health field. I work with child and youth help institutions, psychiatric clinics, and institutions who work with persons with mental illness, mental disease.
Okay. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about how you first got into transactional analysis.
No, this was my personal psychotherapy. I had a rather challenging young time and had rather challenging crises. And with TA therapy, I experienced a person who integrated thinking, what was my resource always, and feeling and acting. They connected somehow a belonging and an own responsibility. Right. So it was a really deep experience where I thought, yes, we can do something, we can change, we can take somehow the lead for ourselves.
Brilliant.
And this was interesting, and then I started to work with children and with young persons, and I realized that TA is a good way to think and to conceptualize.
Yeah.
And I tell a little bit more about...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, tell us some more.
Well, and I had this situation in the private office where persons came and had their problems. And when I make supervision in the psychosocial health field with children, then we often have very complex situations where we have families with a different and complex structure.
Yeah.
We have different cultures. We have a discount in serious forms. And then to look, what are problems? What are solutions? What are resources? How can I bring complex situations to a solvable and manageable level?
Right.
There was TA an excellent tool. Excellent tool. Yes, this was how I came as a person and as a professional then to TA.
So how long have you been qualified as a TA practitioner?
Well, this was, I think I had 8 or 10 years where I learned TA.
Yeah.
And in this time I developed my work. Yeah?
Yeah.
And then after having CTA, I rather soon made my PTSDA in Kiel in England.
Okay.
Nice. And and then I made my journey.
Okay.
Stepped on.
And were you working in the psychological sphere before TA as well, or was it TA that brought you into that world?
TA brought me
into that world.
Yeah. Oh, before I intended to go to school.
Okay.
And when I studied school, we had a practical sequences, and then I realized, oops, this is not my work.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
Later, I became for 10 years a school director of a little school, but at this time, when I started, I realized teaching children is too challenging for me.
And that was your introduction to working with children and families as a teacher. Okay.
Very good.
Now, this episode is particularly focused on transactional analysis and counselling within transactional analysis. So I wondered if maybe you could tell us a little bit about your perspective, your frame of reference on how counselling in transactional analysis works and what that's about for you, your thoughts on that.
Let me start with some reflections about counseling.
Do so, please.
I have a certificate as a sociologist. I'm no psychologist, but I'm a sociologist.
Yeah.
And so I have a good view to societal questions.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when I see clients coming to me, they are not coming because of exhaustion. This is the reason why they come concretely. But there are patterns of behavior, of thinking, of feeling, of organizing themselves are not fitting anymore. They organize their work and they organize their life, but the patterns are no longer fitting. And I think that we have a society that is very flexible, very agile, say it positively, and persons have to adjust themselves to the requirements that are made in different contexts.
Yes.
If somebody from northwest Germany goes to Stuttgart or to Munich, this is a change of culture, of identity, of the whole person. And society has become a very moving, flexible system.
Yeah.
And in this society, the persons, the individuals have to organize themselves. Who am I? How are I? With whom am I? For what am I?
Yeah.
So these questions, these deep questions of identity, who am I? This has to be done by individual persons each day, again and again.
Yeah.
Identity is a process that enables us to participate in society.
Yeah.
But it has to be done individually and each day, again and again. And counseling is a space where this is done, where this can be supported, where this can be framed. Hilarion Petzold spoke about a space of freedom, counseling as a space of freedom where we can look what our external context. What does it mean to come from an agricultural region into an industrial region or a post-industrial region? What does this mean? What does it mean that in my childhood things have happened? How can I realize, reflect, and manage my internal context and my external context? This balancing and adjusting, I think this is identity work in a modern and postmodern society. And this is what we have to do.
Great.
Yeah, and I had clients with such interesting histories, and then we look back 2 generations. And I had a client, for example, who had Dutch grandparents, and German grandparents. And the Dutch parents came from Rotterdam, which was bombed by the Germans after they capitulated.
Yeah.
And the German family came from East Europe, and they had very painful experience when they had to leave their places, and they had experienced violence. And these wounded grandparents were in this client.
Yeah.
And to adjust it, to balance it, to bring it into one narrative so that he could work in Germany now.
So it's interesting. What I guess what I'm picking up from what you're saying is you are doing a lot of accounting for contextual matters, cultural issues, historical, transgenerational or intergenerational matters, and that's all taking place in this space that you describe as counselling. Space of freedom, is that how you describe it?
Space of freedom, yes.
Interesting.
Yes, and accounting is a good word because when I work in the child and youth help area, then we often have children who steal, who hurt themselves or others, who have really crazy, dysfunctional, discounting behavior. We have parents of these children who have crazy, dysfunctional, and discounting behavior. It's really challenging.
Yeah.
And I love in TA that Byrne gave us tools to understand that the crazy father is not crazy but wounded, and that his way of behaving, thinking, feeling was a solution and an adaptation.
That's right.
To his context that he had.
Yeah.
And to account that dysfunctional behavior is a solution for a bigger problem.
Yeah.
This is very helpful in my work.
Peter, how would you differentiate from what you do in the counselling field to, let's say, the psychotherapy field? I'm wondering what, if any, overlaps or differences you would make, because I could also see how somebody in the psychotherapy field might be listening to this and say, oh, well, I could work with these people too. So how do you feel the counselling approach is different from the therapeutic approach?
I see the big smile on your face with that question.
Well, as when I was in the executive committee of EATA, we had outreach programs, and we went to different countries and made workshops as executive committee. And when we were in Skopje, I told such stories about counseling, and they said, "What is the difference? What is the difference?"
Yeah,
it was nice. Well, in Germany we have it's rather easy to differentiate. I think so, because psychotherapy deals with illness, and the aim of psychotherapy, as I understand, is to cure, is to support and to reach healing, so that the person who has a depression has afterwards no or less depression. This is not my aim. This is not my aim as a counselor. My aim as a counselor is to empower, to support the person to deal him or herself, to deal with the aspects that are part of my history, and to understand that this depression that I have is something that I do in loyalty to the died grandfather or whoever. And then I can understand the depression as a solution. And sometimes I step into it and connect myself with my grandfather, but I can step out as well, as an adult way of love and relationships then. So, and loyalty. So my aim is not healing.
Yes.
My aim is the development of personality and the empowerment towards external context and internal context. And your word of accounting is important. I account that I had this kind of internal defenses, not feeling, becoming anxious or whatever. I can account this, and I can account my parents who gave to me what they could, and what they could not give, they could not give. So, accounting is an important aspect.
So, the counselling is really working with and in the adult ego state then, a lot of the time.
With what?
With the adult ego state, and looking to build capacity and resource and access to adult.
Yeah, with the integrating adult ego state.
Yeah,
right.
I work very, very much with system constellation and family constellation.
Okay, yeah.
In single settings.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I put cards on the ground for the different members of the families, for the different families, for the topics, and the person is wandering inside of herself, of himself, and feeling, reflecting, perceiving, accounting, managing his topics and persons that he comes from. This is...
I love that imagery. And as they are doing that, are they communicating with you and sharing their experience? And
yeah,
okay,
they are wandering inside of themselves, and I'm wandering inside of them. So and we exchange. What do you perceive? What do I perceive? And I'm rather experienced in wandering in persons, and so I can offer my perceptions, and the aim is to account and to integrate, and by this to empower.
Yes.
And it's really, it's a difference if I work on mental illness or if I work on supporting development and supporting empowerment.
Yes.
So,
and what's the difference? How would you distinguish that difference?
When somebody comes to me and says he has problems with his family, always anger and frustration, and the question, do they stay together or not? And he says that he has a depression, and I see that he has very depressive symptoms. As a psychotherapist who works with depression, I work with him until he has no more depression.
Okay.
If this is possible.
Yeah.
As far as is possible. As a counselor, I work with him to empower him to see his life in a state as it is at the moment, to see options and burdens, and to manage the burdens and to see the options and move towards the options.
Okay. Yeah.
And if he needs his depression at the end still or not, this is not my question. I have clients who take their depression with them, sometimes as a resource to make a break, or whatever, or as an aspect of loyalty, or if they, this is not my question. If they still need it, my question is: are they able to take the challenges and options of their life? This is what I support balancing of the aspects of their life. I support the feeling and taking care of values, of meaning. These are questions more than health. Becomes it visible?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great answer.
I'm also wondering then at where and if there might be an intersection with coaching at the other side of counselling. Do you see that as being another field or as being something different? I'm interested in your thoughts about that, if you have any.
In Germany, we have now a task force who shall review the concept of counselling.
Okay.
I'm one member of this task force. You could say it, if I allow myself a certain kind of grandiosity, I could say it's all counselling.
Okay.
Because if you go with coaching, you have to have more competence and more knowledge about organizations, about functional and professional systems, and so on. If you work with people with psychiatric disease, illness, you have to have knowledge in this. So, and if you work with children in youth help associations, institutions, you have to have knowledge about development topics, about educational topics. So it's supporting persons in context.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's many roles under the role of counsellor, depending on what context you are involved in professionally.
Yeah, the word above is counselling, and below we have psychological counselling in private practice, or let's say something, or supervision or coaching.
Yeah.
Even psychotherapy we could put there, but I'm not sure about this. And I don't know if I want to do this.
Yeah, sure.
So we have not only private offices in Germany, we have thousands of church, ecclesial counseling offices.
Support services.
Counseling offices for couples, for families, for life.
And that's linked to the church?
We have Catholic, we have Protestant, we have township, how do you call it, of the towns, of the cities.
Like local council?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and it's really exploding.
Okay.
The need of getting support to organize myself is increasing extremely.
Why
do you think that is the case?
I think, as a sociologist, I think because we have a lack. We have a lack of bonding and clarity.
Right.
We have a lack of who am I, and the flexibility that persons have to have.
Yes.
Is not self-evident. It's a really psychological work and challenge to organize myself, that I get up in the morning, have a rather good mood, work until 5 or 6 or whatever, then go home and I do no violence against my family. So this is a lot of work that we have to do. And the flexibility of our society, the lack of bonding, the lack of authentical contact are aspects that destroy the ability of persons to organize themselves in a good way.
I really like the way you describe it as a person organizing themselves, because I recognize that there is a tension between being able to define who I am, as you mentioned earlier, and you also spoke to the idea that we are like a verb, ever-changing and constantly influenced by different demands from different cultural and societal influences.
I think this is a good development that TA makes at the moment. I think Michael Korpion calls it the relational turn.
Yeah.
We do, less and less we define a person just as a person. But we define a person as a person
within a system.
Within a system.
Yeah.
This word of Ubuntu, I am because we are, becomes part of theory development, step by step. And I think this is something really important, that we define and create tools for intersubjectivity, for realizing, perceiving, and working with connected persons. So that we do not think, this is Matt, and you are you with your wife and your systems and with your history, and so, and to see this system when you work with persons. I think this is important, and that we get more in touch with this.
Yeah. What does it mean to you to be a systemic practitioner?
I'm not a systemic practitioner, but I
okay. We can edit that one out. No, we'll leave it in.
Well, it's a beautiful question.
You're a practitioner who works with systems.
Yeah.
It's a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
I'm a practitioner, and TA is my home, and TA integrates deep psychological aspects, systemic aspects, behavioral aspects. So I developed, in my last article, I developed something like an idea following Keith Tudor of an holistic field.
Okay.
And I think we have to integrate. And when I read systemic theory, some aspects are missing for me. This is why I'm not a systemic practitioner.
Okay.
This deep contact and encounter. When I look to Bernd Schmidt, for example, I don't know if you know, he describes that two persons co-create reality, and this co-created reality he puts between them.
Yeah.
if I go to Matthias Sell, he brings these two persons in one field. He calls it the relational field.
Yeah.
And he shows very differentiated how they are connected and interrelated.
Yes.
And this is the direction where we have to go, because the societal need steps into this direction, and we have to build resources if somebody comes, and we have to understand that he is not he and she's not she, but he is something that comes from and goes to.
Yes. Yeah.
So we need developed concepts, and we are in this process now.
Great. It's nice to hear somebody like yourself who's been, because you were president of ITAA for how long? Was it a year?
3 years.
3 years, for 3 years. And that you are focused on developing ideas and thoughts around TA theory that means that TA theory is evolving. And that's something that I love about TA, actually, is that it's not a static piece of theory. It's constantly evolving. And especially for me, I really love the idea that who we are in relationship is how we are defined initially, and then how we grow and develop. And so paying attention to that.
Yeah. As president of EATA, I think it was a little bit difficult. So I'm happy now not to be president.
Oh, really?
I'm more free.
Yeah.
Because 2/3 of our membership in Europe of this is psychotherapy.
Yeah.
And if we look to Eastern European members and associations, we have clear psychotherapeutical members, and we have to support them and to those tools and concepts that work with the person have to be validated and researched and so on. But as a counselor, this is not my key interest. As a counselor, I think I work with social systems, and health is not my topic.
Okay, yeah.
My topic is responsibility, empowerment. This is mine.
Do you feel like that might be a challenge for the professional associations then, the fact that we actually have a very broad set of applications, and that not everybody who might become president or have another role of responsibility might be interested or proficient in a particular area? Like you said, health isn't your area.
I think this is a real challenge to the development of TA.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if we will stay together.
I'm
not sure. And I don't know if it's good to stay together in this way. Because the professions have different interests, different moves, different needs, different processes, different aims. So, and what we should work with are our values, and look, how do you realize okayness when you work as a psychotherapist and start with illness? And how do you work in organization, and how do I work in counseling?
Yes.
Which values do you follow? Which values are important? And this value focusing, this was an important part for me in my presidency. To look what brings us together. It was important for me that as EATA and ITAA, we made this support platform for those who are burdened by the war. And it was important for us not to say only Ukrainians, but all colleagues and friends and persons who are betroffen, who are impacted by war. So, what are the values that we represent and that we work for? To get this clearer, this was important.
And what did you learn from that process, working with other colleagues? What was the thing that most stood out to you through that process?
Well, the Ukrainian process was, for me, interesting and challenging. Because the Ukrainian colleagues suffered extremely challenging, terrible, dangerous situations. And to stay there and to stand there and to say, we do this and support and stay with you. And nevertheless, we support as well Russian colleagues, and we will not exclude Russian members because they are Russians.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, there were requests in this direction, and how do we discuss this serious and challenging question? This was interesting.
Well, it gets right to the heart of TA, doesn't it, around I'm okay, you're okay, and unconditional positive regard, because the whole world began to, didn't it, say, okay, we exclude everything and anything Russian, so it would be natural that the TA community would also have to face the challenge that some might agree with that and others might not. So it's a very difficult political terrain to navigate, and I'd imagine that there's other things in presidencies that are difficult to navigate as well that might happen in the world. And I'm wondering very curiously about how the different fields might react differently to these things.
Yeah. We will see how they react.
Yes.
We will see how they react. What was important in the process, on the one side, it was Ukraine, the Russian war in Ukraine. But we started it at the same time. I realized that in my time as a president, we had thousands of refugees that drowned in the Middle Sea.
Yes.
We had a climate change that increased, and as a psychotherapist or a counselor, we did not deal with this. And I thought this makes no sense. This makes no sense. It's not good when the world breaks together. I'm a German, and my parents lived in the 30s and 40s and 50s, and my generation had to ask, "What did you do that it happened?"
Yes,
that Holocaust happened, and I don't. And if my children ask, "What did you do while climate change?"
Yes,
and millions of people died, what did you do? I want to have an answer when they ask.
Yeah,
and so with really beautiful colleagues, we developed this common mission statement. Did you hear about it?
I've heard about it, but I don't know that much about it yet.
Yeah, we said the common mission statement was at first a process where we asked what connects us, ITAA and EATA, and what are our values in a time where the world is breaking down, where climate, social justice, autocratic systems increase, and so on. And then we developed a common mission statement where we say that those who practice TA are committed to the values of sustainability and social justice. And so we do not stay just with an I'm okay, you're okay, but we step forward to a universal okayness. The refugees that are drowning are okay as well.
Yeah.
And the world that is drying, is destroyed, is okay as well. So this is what I think this is the development that we have to do as transactional analysts without losing the quality that we have. We are not a political association and approach, but we have to take responsibility. It's not that the person that comes into my office is somehow a little bit more happy and somehow a little bit more self-dominating, determinating. But how do I support him to perceive that he is a connected person? So the awareness, not just I and you, I and you and you and the world.
And the world, yes.
Right. This is my image of the direction of the development of TA.
Okay, universal okayness.
Yeah, and this common mission statement yesterday has been put into the statutes of EATA by the General Assembly.
Oh, wonderful!
Yeah, last year the Council agreed to it, and because it's a statute change, the General Assembly had to agree as well.
Great.
Yeah, and I'm really happy. And what this means now, if we're not just looking, you and I, what does it mean for the development of concepts, of theory, of competencies, of exams, of trainings, of curricula, of syllabus? So we will see what the consequences are. But this is a journey we have to do now.
That is really interesting, because when we think back to the origins of transactional analysis, that's a sea change. That's a big change. And I'm excited by the thought of the development. And I guess I'm also very curious about the potential of loss, or what may be missed in shifting from our current position to the universal okayness. But I guess that will unfold in time.
Yeah. I think we really have to take care about the losses, as you say. Because our colleagues from Spain to Kazakhstan, they work as psychotherapists, 2/3 of them.
Okay.
It's a big proportion, isn't it?
Yeah. And psychotherapists, as I experience them, have a tendency to look to the single
individual.
person.
Yes.
Yeah, they are paid for the single person.
Yes. Yeah.
And this has to be respected. But as a counselor, I see that when I work with families, when I work with social systems, then I see that I am because we are.
Yes.
What comes to mind for me is the idea that already in theory, we have pieces like the 2-person plus that Keith Tudor talks about, or contextual transactional analysis, the James Sedgwick book. So there is already thoughts and ideas around psychotherapy that account for context. So it's exciting.
There's a lot of really good movement and development in this theory.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how my psychotherapeutical colleagues develop their work so that it is still paid and accredited.
Yes.
And nevertheless, they have the relational turn as well.
Yes.
So, but they have to organize it via the ill person.
Yes.
And this is not my necessity.
Yeah.
If I think that this man should bring his wife or his children, I ask him to bring his wife and his children, or whoever is good and helpful.
And I wonder as well if it is a total sea change, because when Burns started, there was a lot of group work.
That's true, actually.
And a lot of residential community settings.
Yeah.
So I don't know if TA does fully have its feet in individual work. I think this is a phenomenon after Burn, and it's become the status quo now that psychotherapy is done one-to-one.
Yeah.
But I'm not too sure that is where Burns' head was at. I mean, I don't know. I never met the man. But from the sense I get of him and who he was and what he was about, I think group work was a big thing for him.
Yeah, I think so too. If I look to the work and to the development, to the reality of Burn, then we have social and we have group aspects and experiences and concepts and so on.
Yeah.
We have the radical psychiatry with Steiner and other authors. But the development of TA went towards a single person treatment.
Yeah.
Do you think that is because of the neoliberal context in the West, which focused on the individual? Do you think TA was influenced by that?
This is a nice question.
And we maybe don't have time today.
I think the history of the individual starts in the 15th century.
Do you?
When we have this proportion studies of Leonardo da Vinci. You know this guy who's standing in the middle?
Yeah, the Vitruvian Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He puts man into the center of the world. If you see other pictures from this time, then you see that God is in the middle and the persons are at the edge of the pictures.
Fascinating, yeah. Okay.
And this was a time when capital independent kings developed. We have the East Indian Company. We have in Germany we have the Fuggers. Capital and society became more flexible and more into a movement.
Yes.
And at the end of the 18th and 19th century, we have an industrialized society where the one meets the other as independent members of the market.
Yes.
Yes.
And Freud did his part to follow this. And I read, when I was in London, I found a book of Sally Swartz, a South African author who wrote about psychoanalysis and colonialism.
Colonialism.
Yes.
Yes.
And she says that psychoanalysis has the patterns and the movements of colonialism.
Fascinating.
Because exploring and taming the unknown.
Wow, that's really
i.e. the unconscious.
fascinating.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, this. I thought this is really interesting, and this is my thinking. We have to take care that we, as psychological supporters in our different professions, do not only support a single person to behave fitting to the economic requests.
Yes.
So
I agree. I think economics has a huge impact, and also, in a way, psychotherapy has been productized to fit the capitalism narrative. You know, you meet one-on-one and people productize their services, you know, and I think there's a danger to that. But we won't get into a debate about capitalism this morning.
So, neoliberalism, that was your question. This is one phase of these political and philosophical framings that lead to the single person treatment.
Right, it was a development. Yeah.
So
I'm very
we
aware of
could go on and on.
Yeah.
This is a fascinating conversation.
Yeah, we could talk for hours.
Yeah.
I'd love to do another episode.
Absolutely.
On this,
we'll be having you back.
Yeah.
We might have a panel discussion.
Yeah.
It could be very interesting to have a panel discussion with colleagues from the other fields about some of the things that we talked to today, to see, you know, how different viewpoints agree or diverge.
Yeah, this would be interesting. And when there was a congress in Lindau of the German Association, we had a panel discussion about okayness. And it was interesting to see how okayness is now used in organizational development and societal development, and that we have to look, is this I am okay, you are okay? Is this a figure that is still fitting enough? And there are different views on this.
Yeah. Well, it's been, unfortunately, for the sake of time, we need to close there, but it's been such an interesting conversation.
Yes,
I
thanks
feel
so
like
much,
the
Peter.
time passed so quickly.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom with us. Much appreciated.
You're welcome. Thank you for doing your work.
Thank you.
Thank you. As always, if you found anything in today's episode interesting, please feel free to reach out. You can visit our website, which has lots of information and resources, transactionalanalysispodcast.com. You can connect with us on all major platforms such as Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And you can email us at info@transactionalanalysispodcast.com. If you aren't already, please follow us wherever you get your podcasts from. Thanks for listening. This episode is sponsored by the International Transactional Analysis Association. You can find out more information on the ITAA at www.ITAA-membership-benefits. And the European Association for Transactional Analysis. You can find more information on IATA at www.eatanews.org.